Hello YouTube, back with the next BattleBots review, and today reviewing episode 11, which involved pretty one-sided fights. I mean, they were actually pretty action-packed as well. At least 2 out of 3, I guess, to an extent. I mean, the second one, which I'm going to get to shortly, was not only rather one-sided, it wasn't, I guess, all that actiony. I guess it was kind of impressive, given what one of the bots actually does. But first we had Vlad and Punjar, and that was definitely one-sided. It was very action-packed. Vlad got probably the biggest runs in its second run at the nut, where it was throwing Punjab around, and Punjab was, I'd say, a relatively formidable opponent for Vlad because it was low to the ground, could push pretty well, almost equally as much as Vlad. But Vlad had no problem getting underneath it, throwing it all around the arena, taking it, to basically most, if not all, corners of the arena. And, even got it on top. I mean, it was in total control pretty much the entire fight. It even got up against the arena wall. It was a total dominant fight. But, Punjab just couldn't keep up. I mean, it was arguably, I think, even about as old as Vlad was at the time. I mean, they were both debuted in the early Robot Wars events. Although Punjab was probably had undergone the biggest change between now and then. But definitely one of the better fights getting into the finals, and this is what you would expect at this point, because now we're getting to the end of the tournament where we should be seeing the bots that have done the best so far, getting to the best of their abilities, getting the toughest opponents they could possibly get. And then we go into Deblo versus Pressure Drop, and this is where Pressure Drop's luck unfortunately runs out, and I think we knew it was coming eventually, because it goes up against Deblo, not only one of the fastest bots, with the fastest hammer in BattleBots, at least as far as I can recall, because it racks up literally about 100 strikes in the time it takes to go through the fight. Pressure Drop really couldn't move very much at all, even because it was a walker. I mean, it was a middleweight walker, so it actually had the weight bonus, but it didn't help them at all because, one, they were stuck up against the spike strip pretty much, and two, they were pretty slow, as walkers tend to be. So Deblo was able to literally walk all over them, get on top, and it didn't really cause any real structural damage as far as I can tell. Maybe there was a little bit done to the little plastic bits around the rock chisel that powered the weapon, but that was another part of Pressure Drop's problem. It had a slow weapon. It was not only a long reach, but also really slow, so it didn't fire very quickly, it didn't retract very quickly, so Deblo was basically all over it. I mean, the only damage Deblo took was pretty much right at the end of the fight, but that did pretty much nothing to it as a whole. So it was a very convincing win. I guess it was probably entertaining for us to, kind of as fans, to actually watch Pressure Drop finally get what it deserved and see Deblo kind of shine brightly, because we kind of knew it had a good shot at getting there. This was pretty cakewalk for Deblo to get through the match. I mean, they probably didn't have a whole lot of fears going into it. I guess it was probably one almost near miss from Pressure Drop at one point. It gets right between the chassis and the wheel, but it would have taken a lot more than that to actually defeat Deblo. If breaking off its own weapon against Alien Gladiator didn't stop Deblo, what was Pressure Drop going to do about it? I mean, they didn't have that ability in their arsenal at all. And then we get on to Minion versus Ramstein. Ramstein really was not working at all. Their spike wasn't working, and their drive, I think, was all completely dead as well. And we really didn't see them very much since their match against Mechadon. That was basically their only fight that aired on TV up to this point. And it was, again, pretty much just another walk in the park for Minion. Minion was all over. Really not much of a fight. I mean, Ramstein probably would not have been able to put up much of a fight in general because its wedge isn't low to the ground. The spike is pretty much ineffective. I mean, going back to the Las Vegas event, Rhino was effective, I think, by luck mostly, because it was able to hit Nightmare's one of the few places on Nightmare you can actually hit, and actually punctured the tire, so it basically went flat, leaving Nightmare pretty much screwed over of winning the fight, even though they had ripped off the spike later on. But, it's pretty one-sided. I mean, Minion didn't need anything special to win this fight. It was just basically shove Ramstein around. Ramstein was pretty much dead. They could have left him Yeah, I think they were probably barely, at most, I think they were barely functioning when the fight started, and then by the end of the fight, they were out of it. There was no coming back. But it ended up going the distance anyway, but I'm pretty confident no one suspected that Ramstein even had a chance at winning this. They probably knew even during the match, as the match went on. I'm sure even Ramstein's builders knew this was not going to be a good fight for them. They knew they were out probably pretty much right out the gates, but they wanted to make it entertaining, and I'm sure it was. Made it to TV after all. And it was pretty one-sided. I guess it was, relatively action-packed considering. I mean, Minion, you got to see a bot slam the opponent all around the arena. I think it went to the kill saws and whatever else. But it was pretty one-sided, so it was unfortunate that Ramstein never really got going, so it didn't even have a chance at winning this fight at all. And of course, we're now, I think, in the semis at this point, so we're not really getting the fights that we would expect at this point. They're supposed to be almost the best of the best going into this, but unfortunately, they really weren't. I mean, either the bot didn't work, or they just didn't have the capability, couldn't do anything in response. But, it's not a bad episode. I mean, it gets you closer to the finals, and the finals, I think, do get better to an extent. When we get to that point. And the Rumbles also are going to be interesting as well, but not as appealing as the last movie. And that's why they don't appear in the reboot. We don't really have Rumbles as large as in the reboot. So, that's my review on BattleBots Season 1.0, Episode 11. Thanks for watching.